We're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust. We are early retirees and we travel for more than 30 weeks a year in our VW campervan Nelson, both in Europe and the UK.
What we want to do in this video is to take you through our top 10 things that we've learned from our time on the road.
If you're new to the channel, we are Richard and Jackie. We've had our VW campervan Nelson for over 8 years now, and for the last 3 years we've been early retired, and we have travelled extensively, making the most of every minute that we can getting away in the van.
We get away all year, so we have even skied out of this little tin can Nelson, and consequently we've learned an awful lot in that time, and the more time we spend in it in our early retired years, the more we've learned. So what we want to do in this video is to take you through the top 10 things we've learned about our life on the road during early retirement. One of the biggest things that we've learned from our time on the road in Nelson and in a tiny camper van is just exactly how little you need to have a fulfilled life. We can't fit very much in Nelson, and we have to cut everything back when we're on the road. And to be honest, we don't really miss many things from home. And actually, we've seen a crossover in our home life in the fact that we've got a little bit more minimalist at home, because if we can live on the road, then we can live in the home simply.
We actually started our retired life the first 14 weeks living in Nelson because we had downsized our home from Cheshire and we were moving to the Yorkshire Dales, and we didn't want to lose the sale on our house, so we just cut the chain. Lived in the van for 14 weeks. We travelled to places like the Outer Hebrides, we came out to Europe, and it was amazing. We didn't miss anything. We didn't miss all the home luxuries. 14 weeks in the van. The only thing that we needed to do was call up my mum's occasionally to do some washing.
Can I point out, we didn't actually plan to be homeless for 14 weeks living in the van. It was only meant to be a 2-week window, but the solicitors had their way and it just dragged and dragged and dragged. So 14 weeks later, we'd learned a lot in that time.
Something we've definitely found over the last 3 years when we go on our longer road trips is that it's much cheaper to be travelling and being away in the van than it is living at home. When we're at home, there's always the temptation to be buying things, ordering things on Amazon, going perhaps to the shops and just coming back with more things than you need. Whereas when in the van, there's not enough space to buy anything extra to put in the van. We live really simply. We just have picnics. We don't particularly go out and eat much when we're on our travels. We've had to change our mindset. It's a definite travelling rather than being on holiday. And if we think of it like that, we do our weekly shop as we normally would do, and we'll treat ourselves to the odd coffee or maybe the odd pizza. But beyond that, we're just travelling, taking in the views and enjoying life. But we don't have to spend a lot of money doing that.
It's pertinent that I'm making this point because it's about flexibility, and flexibility wins. Now, regular viewers of the channel will know that I love my planning and I love my strategy, and I really don't like going off plan. However, life on the road, you have to be flexible. You have to change your plans for the weather, the crowds, the holidays. But now that we're early retired, we've got that freedom to do that. So we can travel in off-peak times. We can avoid the major holidays. And most importantly of all, we can take top tips from people on the road, because we've learned that there is so much knowledge out there and you've just got to talk to people, and if they give you a tip off of a great place to go, 90% of the time they're not going to be wrong, and you need to follow that.
One of the biggest questions we get asked frequently is how do we cope living together for extended periods of time in such a small space? We do affectionately call Nelson our little tin can at times, and yes, it is a small space. Everything has its place, even the veg just has its little hanging space here. It's much easier in the summer. When we're travelling, we can just shove everything out into the outdoors. We can have the tables and chairs out there. We can cook out there. And we do have our own space really easily. In the evenings, if we just want to lounge around, it's just easy to get the bed out. I can watch Netflix. Richard could be doing whatever he wants to do on his computer. We just find our own space within the van. In the winter, it's a little bit more tricky. Obviously, it's darker nights, it's colder, and it is a lot more snug. We still find our own spaces within the van though. Richard likes to sit in the front seats where he's sitting now while I'm recording this, and I get the bed out. It does help that we never ever argue. We very rarely even bicker, so we never have the problem of going to sleep on argument We might occasionally get the hump with each other, but it doesn't last long. I think it does help if you like each other. Living in a small space, if you really irritate each other, is probably not great. Richard does know he's not to eat crisps and apples when he's in my earshot, because that's the only thing that does annoy me.
We talk all the time on the channel about being relatively cash poor but time rich, and one of the benefits of being time rich is that we can spend our time doing our travels. When we were working, we had to squeeze everything into a set period of time, and you felt like there was a compulsion to get the most out of that holiday period. Whereas now when we go on our longer early retirement adventures, we can slow down, and that's been quite a mind shift. It's been really difficult because we have just not been used to the time before, whereas we are getting better at it. So for example, on this trip, we're 3 weeks into it and we've only really hit 3 big centres, and we've stayed there roughly for a week each time, exploring fully the area, immersing ourselves and just slowing down. And it's something that is a major positive out of early retired travel. If I think back to our first European road trip in Nelson, we just went absolutely bananas. We were crossing borders left, right and centre. We were running from the weather. We just did so much mileage and definitely didn't get the best out of that trip. So for this trip, we've limited ourselves not just to France, but to 3 small regions of France where we're looking at the Alps, we're looking at Provence, and maybe down to the Côte d'Azur. But that's up for debate as to whether we've got enough time to do that, because in early retirement, there'll always be another trip where we can come back and explore some more.
Something that we do find a little bit trickier when we're on the road is making sure that we stay fit and healthy. Obviously, we're very active. We do a lot of hiking. We get out into the mountains a lot, but we tend not to do any other form of exercise. Whereas when we're at home, we have set up our own little challenges and our little home gym with some weights and things. It's something we're still working on trying to do more of, but we do know that we're active, and we do know that we are getting so much time out in the great outdoors and the fresh air. The other thing that we find quite a challenge when we're on the road is making sure that we eat healthily. It's so easy, particularly in Europe, to go and buy a croissant or to buy a baguette for your lunch every day, and food that you can grab and cook quickly. When the weather's great, it's fine. We can barbecue and have salads, so we eat a bit more healthily. When the weather's not so great, we tend to go back to carb-based foods. Again, something that we're working on, we're getting better at, but it's just something to make a note of.
We don't want you to think that things always go smoothly when you're out travelling in the van, and the longer that you spend on your adventures, the more likely things are to go wrong. But we're not the sort of channel that sort of sensationalises these things, but we do need to let you know that occasionally things do go wrong. So for example, in our January ski trip this year, when we were driving down to the Alps, we got a stone chip on the windscreen and it started to crack, and we got really worried, but we'd got the plans in place. So we'd got recovery breakdown, we rang the insurance company, they reassured us that everything was going to be okay with the windscreen, and they sorted it out. So having that reassurance that you've got your sort of safety net in place covers most things. But don't think that for one moment things go smoothly, but that's part of the fun and that's part of the adventure.
Don't for one minute think that life on the road means that you both just have to be quite lonely and only have each other's company. Whether you're travelling as a couple or whether you're travelling solo, there is a great community out there. We do find being on campsites is absolutely fantastic, and the washing up room is the best place to stand, chat, meet fellow travellers. They will talk to you about where they've been and their plans of where they're going. You get lots of advice of different things that you could do and see. And for us, something that's even more special, we do bump into our subscribers quite frequently, and that's actually lovely. We love it when people come and say hello and chat to us. We've had a lovely evening of sitting and having some drinks on one of the campsites a couple of nights ago. We even bumped into 2 subscribers when we were pedalling and canoeing down the river into the gorgeous du Verdun, and it's lovely just to have that sort of short, brief conversations with total strangers, but it just feels really good.
When we stepped into early retirement and made a commitment for longer travel and longer adventures, we were a little bit worried about keeping in touch with our family and friends back home. We needn't have been, because the world has got such a small place, and with a phone and with a good data package, that's perhaps a different story, you can keep in touch with anyone that you want. And we regularly FaceTime our mums, our kids, and keep in touch with everyone back home. So it doesn't feel like we're away from home for too long, but it does afford us the opportunity to get out there and adventure for a little bit longer than we would if we were working. When we made the decision to early retire, we knew that there were going to have to be compromises. When you make that decision to early retire, you're obviously compromising your financial income for the future. But we were quite happy with that because that meant we were time rich and that we could have more opportunities to build memories together.
And having our camper van meant that we could afford to extend our travels. We haven't got to pay for expensive flights. We haven't got to pay for hotel rooms. We do pay for campsites, but it's just given us that freedom to be able to travel extensively and for long periods of time. And we have no regrets. We don't have the luxuries of travel, so we don't go to big 5-star hotels and have lots of fancy meals, but that's okay with us because that's the kind of lifestyle that we've chosen. Obviously, we've got subscribers from all sort of walks of life watching this, and we know that van life isn't for everyone. My sister, for example, couldn't abide the thought of being away for 7 weeks in a tiny tin can, as she refers to it as well. But she's found her own way. She goes away for weeks in Airbnbs and will have a week in different places. So she still gets the benefit of travel. She still gets all of the fun of visiting the different places and immersing herself in those different cultures. There are ways around it, but for us, we've just chosen van life and we love it.
We hope that you've really enjoyed our top 10 and we hope it's resonated with you. If we've missed anything, please pop it in the comments below because we'd love to hear your opinions, because it's really valuable for the whole community to get that wider exposure to people's thoughts and views. So please pop your thoughts in the comments below. So that's it from us for this week. We will catch you on Sunday from somewhere in Europe, in Nelson. But for now, see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.